I never imagined the day my life would split cleanly into a before and after would begin with a brunch invitation and a white envelope. We were at my brother Samir's house for a Diwali get-together when his wife, Ria, sidled up to me with that smile she always used, the one that said she knew more than she let on. She slipped something into my hand without ceremony, a card with a name and a number, and a sticky note that read, "For Neha. She'd love this." Neha laughed when she saw it. "A date? Really? Who set this up?" I looked from the card to Ria and met her eyes. She shrugged as if she'd nothing to do with it. "Just thought you two would click," she said lightly. I watched Neha's face as she pocketed the card. She was curious, flattered, and, I would learn later, reckless in a way I had never expected. 2 nights later, I was woken by the sound of our front door closing softly, then the soft click of Neha's heels as she left without a word. She said she was meeting friends for a drink. I believed her because I always wanted to. I believed her because believing was easier than asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. The card Ria had given us, the name scrawled in a tidy hand, I filed it away in my head like an unlabeled receipt and went back to sleep. It was a message from a mutual acquaintance that broke the dented calm of our life. "Saw Neha tonight," it read. "At a bar with a man. She looked close." I laughed at first, a hollow, disbelieving sound. People lie, I told myself. But then another message arrived, then a picture. Neha and a man in a booth, faces too intimate for the screen's distance, a hand resting where hands shouldn't. The image was crude, but its meaning was sharp and immediate. The man in the photo. I recognized his profile, the nose, the way he tucked hair behind his ear. It was the same name on the card. It was the man Ria had set up. Anger is not instantaneous. It accumulates like rainwater in a basin, cold and relentless. My first reaction was disbelief, then pleading, then rage. I wanted to explode into our bedroom and demand explanations, to lay the evidence before Neha and force a confession from the dry lips I loved. But I was careful, or perhaps cowardly. I composed myself, took screenshots, saved timestamps. I needed context. I wanted to understand the whole shape of what had happened before I broke it apart. When Neha came home at dawn, smelling faintly of cigarette smoke and something else too sweet, she pretended to be sleepy. I watched her move, the casualness, the small smile she forced when she thought I wasn't looking. I slid the photo to her on the kitchen counter and waited. The smile dropped like a curtain. Her mouth made a sound that wasn't a word, and then she wept, stumbling through a confession. It wasn't the neat narrative I would have preferred. There was guilt, there was denial at first, and then memory spilling out in jagged pieces. The card, an incidental meeting, the thrill, the secrecy. She said his name with regret, Arjun, a consultant from the firm Ria's friend had introduced him through. She said it mattered nothing in the end, but the fact had been done. I tried to stay composed. I tried to tell myself that whatever had happened, whatever Neha had done, it was still possible to pick up the pieces. But pieces have edges, and those edges cut. That evening I called Samir, ostensibly to talk about the upcoming festival, and he answered with the same casual warmth he always sported. He did not sound like a man who knew. I arranged to meet him later at his house. I told him I wanted to talk about family plans. I watched Samir through the living room doorway while he and Ria argued over a trivial thing, whose turn it was to take their mother to the clinic. Ria laughed too loudly when Samir made a joke. It was a laugh I would later remember as the sound of complicity. I thought about confronting them then, but I wanted something else. Proof of intent, of malice, of the choice to set my wife up. If you are going to ruin 2 people, it helps to be sure they deserve it. So I watched, I listened, I collected. What I found was worse than I'd feared. A series of messages on Ria's old, unguarded phone revealed she had been flirting with the idea of playing matchmaker for months. The messages were not the playful, innocuous ones I could forgive. They were precise, insistent, and occasionally cruel. "He's single," one message read. "She's been unhappy. Imagine how fun it would be." Another said, "I'll make them meet. They'll have a little fling and learn their lesson." The idea that this was a prank, a small moral lesson, made bile rise in my throat. This was not mischief. It was manipulation. I called Ria and Samir together to clear the air. I made my voice neutral, my posture casual, but inside I was concentrating on the shape of the plan I had already begun to form. I presented the messages like a prosecutor laying out evidence. Ria's face shifted from surprise to the stone of someone who had to improvise guilt into innocence. Samir floundered in the center, torn between his wife and the man who had married his sister. There was a line I crossed then. Perhaps it is the line every wronged person crosses in private revenge. I told them I knew everything. I told them what Neha had done. I told them that I would not make scenes. I told them I was hurt. I told them I wanted them to see what their cruelty had wrought. You do not prepare for the minute when you choose to take revenge. It comes like a river through a village, sudden, inevitable. Mine began small and careful. I hired a private investigator, a quiet man who looked like he kept secrets the way some people keep books. He tracked Arjun for me, dinners, hotel stays, his schedule. I wanted to know everything, not to destroy Arjun, but to construct a truth so public and humiliating that no one could ignore it. I set up accounts, anonymous emails, a fake profile that would expose the affair not in whispers but in light. The first strike was to strip them of privacy. I sent an anonymous note to the head of Arjun's firm with the images and timestamps of his meetings with Neha. The firm called a meeting and, predictably, Arjun denied everything at first. But the image trail was stubborn. Within a week, he was suspended pending investigation. News traveled, not wide but close enough. A few friends texted condolences, pretending to be surprised. Ria's smug distance faltered as she watched the man she'd introduced lose his job. Samir's face closed up with worry about his sister's reputation. It was satisfying in a way I wouldn't admit, to see the architect of our undoing face the first consequences. But consequences breed more consequences. Ria came clean in a quiet, humiliating phone call to Neha that week. She apologized, or claimed to. The voice was clipped and brittle. I didn't know it would go this far, she said. I wanted to teach a lesson. The lesson turned out to be monstrous in its results. Shame for Arjun, shame for Neha, suspicion around Samir. I had set up a theater of exposure, and everyone had to play their part. I did not stop at Arjun. I wanted Ria and Samir to feel the erosion I had felt, the slow, steady peel of reputational salt on a relationship. I leaked selective details to the family group chat, photos of private messages, snippets of the card Ria had given Neha. I was careful not to lie. I let the truth do the work and let the family assemble their judgments. Cousins called. Aunts sent worried emojis. Samir's phone buzzed. He tried to deflect, tried to make light of it, but the veneer cracked. He accused me of overreacting, of embarrassing them. I accused him of being complicit. The two positions were not reconcilable. My revenge had a second, quieter layer. I began to withdraw. Not theatrically, but meticulously. I started to skip family dinners, citing work. I stopped texting Samir first. I stopped sharing the small domestic details that once bound us. The school recital dates, the grocery lists. It was petty and childish and painfully effective. They felt my absence like a missing hinge. Small things started to slip. Arrangements fell through. Ria tried to fill the space I had created with apologies and frantic hospitality, but the damage was done. They had set a trap and then watched with bored curiosity as it snapped closed on them. But revenge is a drug with diminishing returns. The first hits, the revelation at Arjun's firm, the family whispers, the empty chairs at our cousin's wedding, gave me a pleasure that felt like survival. After that, the aftertaste arrived, emptiness, a quiet that was not healing but hollowing. I watched Neha collapse in the shower one night, the sound of her sobs muffled by tile and running water, and it cut me worse than any insult. I had wanted her to feel remorse, to understand the ruin she had created. Instead, she felt raw and alone. My vindictive measures had replaced one wound with many. One evening, Samir came to my house unannounced. He looked smaller in person than he did across a screen. His shoulders were drawn tight as if holding something unbearably heavy. He did not yell. He did not defend Ria with the fierce loyalty I might have expected. He simply sat at my kitchen table and said, "You hurt us. You hurt them. But look at what this has done to Neha." His voice was not pleading. It was quietly furious and tired in equal measure. I met his eyes and saw for the first time the reflection of a man I had become. Vengeful, diminished by the very act that was supposed to restore me. He left with no flourish, and the house seemed colder for days after. I had won the battle in the public sense, but I had lost something private and vital, the right to claim a moral high ground, even in my hurt. Revenge, it turned out, had no moral center. It consumed what it touched, and my appetite had left nothing but ash.